Hi everyone, welcome to the next episode on PBWM Hotseat. In front of me is Johannes. Johannes, welcome. Johannes is a managing director in our Switzerland office, looking after regulatory compliance and risk. Johannes, before we get started with the hot seat, thanks a lot for your time. Maybe a quick intro from your end, if that's okay.
Yes, thank you for the invite, first of all. Having served 25 years in compliance already, I now move into more tech. So I do also some studies in Oxford on AI. Now joined Synpulse to bring my expertise to Synpulse clients, but also to the broader audience. So I'm absolutely happy to take your questions on the hot seat.
Thanks a lot. So let's fire away. Since you mentioned you were a compliance officer, moving into technology, studying AI. First question, how does the future change for a compliance officer? How does it look like?
I think a compliance officer these days needs to be a tech-savvy compliance specialist. What does that mean? You need to change fundamentally how you approach things. You can't just read a regulation and then try to extract it and put it in a process. You need to embrace change, but also you need to start working on the organizational change which is needed to achieve this.
Why is it necessary and why now?
Why now? And I don't repeat because of ChatGPT, but obviously that has one of the main reasons, because there where we all saw that AI is coming and it includes the regulator as well. The regulator is expecting you to act with newest technology, but also with the technology available in the market, so that you can address all the issues around compliance and risk comprehensively. And we've seen quite a few failures in the past where it happened in silos. And I think this is why we need now to act. It's because regulators are expecting, but also because we are expecting to make much more with all the data and address our problems much more comprehensive.
And I would assume that the nature of the business over the years has also gone significantly higher in the way I think financial crime has been happening. One of the cases that I still recall is closest to Singapore, the entire $3 billion case, the way that it happened and panned out. To me, the level of sophistication and how potentially financial institutions can handle these cases and should handle these cases. In some cases, it's to do with the FIs. Sometimes it's also to do with the government collaborations. But absolutely agree with you that automation, data, analytics is not something that you cannot not do anymore.
Yes, but also the regulators go even now far beyond, because you can't do it in a silo. Before, you could have delegated compliance to the chief compliance officer. This is not possible anymore. You have the senior management regime all over. You have it established already, starting in the UK. I don't need to mention Singapore, you are well aware of it. But also FINMA is working since the issue we had in Switzerland with one of the banks, also tremendously hard. So they were working 1 year. Now they put it into the hearings. And they expect to really now have also senior management regime in Switzerland where they can go after. And they also told all the board members, you can't delegate. So it's you have the responsibility. You need to keep the oversight. You can have help, but we expect you to know the risks, and you also need to manage the risks.
I think the tone is quite similar also in Singapore. You're the one signing off onboarding of the client, you're the one signing off the risk, and you take accountability for it, right? So to me, it looks to be the general train of travel, but it's also gotten more accelerated when it comes to expectations towards what is first line of defense, right? So you cannot delegate your responsibility, saying that somebody in compliance did not do things right.
And on the other hand, then you also can't take decisions based on a PDF file. So you obviously also need to have the right tooling to enable, let's say, board members to act upon the risks which they currently also have within their bank.
This one links back to SRS, I believe, and then Synpulse Risk Supervisor. That was the initial idea that we had, where all the risks that you have across multiple taxonomies can be aggregated so that there is a bird's eye view towards different people in the organization that you could have depending on where you sit within the organization. First line, second line, if you're the CEO, if you're the desk head, if you're the country head. So to me, I guess this is just start of the journey, potentially that can lead into multiple more, supporting the senior manager regime, as you rightfully mentioned.
And it needs to evolve. Coming from siloed different use cases and tools, then we all started to invest a reasonable amount of time in getting Power BI ready. I think now we reached absolutely the next level. So we need to be able to support the senior management also with the right information. So they need to see it visual. Here I have risk area because of, and that they can really start addressing the risk. Otherwise, you are not able to manage your risks, obviously, in the right way.
Understood. And going into technology and automation, AI is no longer a buzzword. GenAI is no longer a buzzword. There is actual outcome and results that have started to come in. Maybe for the audience, could you maybe talk about one or two areas in the real world where it has maximum impact?
It's a long question. You may expect also a long answer, but I will break it up. I think the two main areas where I can see it is financial crime compliance, starting from transaction monitoring, where it started already, and move into KYC. But then also the whole risk oversight, so that you can have a complete overview on all your risks, being it conduct, being it financial crime, being it all the other risks you have to manage. Going one step back, as you said, it is here. You need to use these tools. You need to use the technology. So in transaction monitoring, it started a long time ago already when we had these rules-based systems, but also where we already used kind of AI to generate the right thresholds and obviously looking for the predictive results. But now in KYC, generative AI brings in a complete new component. So you can augment all the real-time information you are getting into one piece of information where you then can process. So it's not that you need to call it waste your time, but also lose some time to gather all the information. So this is just happening with generative AI in one go, and you can really start putting all your efforts and your knowledge into the assessment of the outcome, what you like to have. So you assess the client's risk, and then you can decide, keep, change, or even exit the client. And I think this is where I see the biggest game changer coming, whereby you also need to be realistic. You have the challenge in implementing such a solution to take on a client, but then you also have the ongoing obligations to monitor constantly the client. You need to monitor its behavior, but also all the changes in circumstances around. And nevertheless, don't forget, you also have a legacy. So you have existing clients. You need to bring them also on the same level. I think as we learn, AI is around already a long time. Now with the speed it has gained, we need to speed up our, let's say, way on how we approach and how we store our data and how we make data available. Because data is now our key assets which we have as a compliance officer. So we need to ensure that we can work with these data.
Could you help give a specific example in this space of how things are done today and how does the future look like? I don't know which area within any of the ones that you mentioned might be more relevant and interesting for me and also the audience to gain some more appreciation.
If you allow me to have two very, let's say, real-time examples, so I think, or real-world examples. So the one is, for sure, it's transaction monitoring. Before you had the more rules-based systems with the thresholds. Now you have more intelligent systems, and you move already into agentic AI systems where automatically the system will learn on transactions. But this is, I think, happening already. Quite a few banks are looking into this. The next, and I think this is more the masterpiece, is the KYC information, where you have unstructured data available in public domain, but also in the knowledge of the bank itself, so from relationship managers and dealings with the customers, but also then from very special databases such as WorldTrack and the likes. And now What you need to do is you need to combine them. You have done that all the way through in the past as well. But how have you gathered it? Most probably you have gathered it in a piece of document, which is called the KYC profile. And then you have done an assessment upon the outcome. Now you need to do it in real time. You need to do it constantly, ongoing, and you need to gather so many information that this needs to be automated. And there you need AI. You don't need AI to do the assessment. You don't need AI to do the conclusion. So you don't need to change everything. What you need to change is the way you currently gather information, the way you make it available, and also the amount of data you could then obviously process. This is the big game changer I can see.
Understood. And with regards to the second one that you mentioned, which is risk oversight, what doesn't exist today that you have in mind that when you were mentioning risk oversight? Could you give an example of how life changes and whose life does it change in the bank?
It changed the life of everybody because risk awareness, as we said initially, can't be delegated. So it needs to be embedded. Everybody needs to be aware on where are the risks, what risks do we have, and risk will change. Suddenly overnight, a war is starting or a event is happening. So the risk can also obviously go into one direction or into the other direction. You need to be aware of the risks constantly. What we've done, we've developed this SRS, the Synpulse Risk Service. It's a tool where you can have all different type of risk taxonomies in. It can be conduct risk, it can be financial fraud risk, it can be all the other risks. You can have it on a dashboard and you will see which areas do you have risk, which clients do you have risk, which teams are, let's say, more risky than the others. So where you can go and go and do the assessment. This one you have to do yourself, but you need to know and you need to be guided where should you go first. And quite a few solutions are already out in the market, but you can't just implement them if you have fragmented systems. Currently, quite a few banks have a system for X and a system for Y, but now you bring them together. And I think this is what also the regulator expects, as you can't delegate the senior management oversight, you also can't delegate the risk monitoring. So you have to involve everybody, you have to make aware all the teams and all the relevant people within your institution. Where do you have risks right now, where you need to respond to it?
Got it. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned because in one of the institutions, I even have seen the thought process even go a step further. One is your data, the analytics, the trends, the heat map. The other part of it is, I think there is a GenAI component that gets added as a very simple chatbot, and you can actually ask it questions, right? You can say if there is, let's say, something that happens in some part of the world, you need to know what's the impact to your business. And it's more than about not raising a query and asking for data sets and databases and trying to do a lot of number crunching. You can just directly go there, type a question, and then it tries to answer, right? I don't know, maybe the imagination of the world is a bit too imaginative in my head for now. Maybe implementation poses still a great reality.
Yeah, but this is happening while we speak, and this is also equally important because the bigger your organization or the more spread around your organization is, the harder it will be to get to the person who has the knowledge. Now you have the data, and the data point itself has also some knowledge. So that's why these chatbots, these possibilities to constantly ask the questions and get real-time answers is even more important. And we also try that in Switzerland now. What we have one piece of regulation, which is called the CDB. So where we try to build a chatbot around that everybody who needs to know how to, let's say, assess or establish the beneficial ownership of an account. How can we ask the questions to the clients? What are the pitfalls? And you can now type in, you can ask your questions and you will get the answer. So what we did, we translated a piece of regulation into a livable and obviously an explainable chatbot which can be used in front of the customer or at the desk of the relationship manager.
Excellent. I'm sure we can discuss several more ideas, but before we carry it away, maybe to get the perspective about how financial institutions are going about it or can go about it, right? Because the big ones, as you can imagine, they may have a lot of budget, money, power that they can put towards these things. Then we have the range of mid-sized banks, sometimes smaller. Where does one start? All the ideas that you described are great and fancy and probably in large amount of cases implementable. But as a bank, I don't know perhaps where I would start, right? So do you have a magic recipe on how would you go about doing this?
It sounds better than it is in reality. Obviously, start smart, but start. I think this is the key message here. It's sit and wait until someone arrives with a magic product which will solve all your issues. This is most probably not happening. What you need to do is you need to enable your own organization that you can be AI ready, that you obviously know your data, you know where you have your weaknesses, but also where you have the availability of data. And then start with a concrete POC where you can see the impact, where you can take also the rest of the team onto that journey. But you need to also work in parallel on the future framework. That is equally important because a tool can only solve one issue. But you have a framework, you have a complete compliance culture, you have the whole compliance risk you need to manage. So there also you need to put some efforts in. But straight to your question, start. Do some POCs, go talk to people. Where can we add value right now? Where can we have something very concrete to showcase, but also not just to showcase to a regulator or to your superiors, but also to the rest of the team, how we could embed AI into compliance.
So in other words, of course, you need the guardrails on AI, overall risk management, but from whatever I hear from you, go more focused, targeted, instead of boiling the ocean. I don't know, simple things like STR filing. There could be some form of a leverage, regulatory chatbot, maybe some form, maybe lower hanging fruits. So from what I can hear is start off and then try to reach to solve the bigger problems, but start with already a focused idea because it can already give you immediate value. Did I understand you correctly?
Yes. When I meant start smart, it's not only to put in a chatbot, because chatbot alone will not give you AI readiness and will also not give you, obviously, the real fundament and the ground to build up on. It is an add-on. It is to bring people along the whole journey of AI. But you need to have a showcase where you also use real data of your customers to obviously help addressing a compliance issue. And the compliance issue is in financial crime, it is the client take-home. It is the ongoing review. It is the assessment of a client risk. And this one you typically don't delegate to a chatbot. This you delegate to a system. Currently it is a risk matrix, it is a KYC, it is a CRM tool, but now you need to bring that onto the next level.
Johannes, thanks for sharing the use cases. One thing that I specifically missed, that's why I wanted to ask you, is source of wealth corroboration. Do you have any thoughts on GenAI AI use cases and AI possibilities in the space?
Sure, but now you really take the most complex one onto the hot seat, I think, which is the right place to ask that question. The source of wealth corroboration obviously is also where we could add most of the value in the whole KYC process. This is where if you need to have the corroboration ready to obviously onboard a customer faster, so this is where you can add value to the whole organization. But on the other hand, it's also the most complex thing because where do you start? Which is the missing document you will never get from the customer? And how can you then obviously have the plausibility check at the end? And I think here you need not just the technology, because the technology might be there already, but now you need the translation of the compliance experience, what you currently do, how you address it, into a prompt to solve it. And this is, I think, it's all there. All the pieces of the puzzle are around, but now we need to put that into the right picture, into the right corner to get the right picture. And I think there, whoever can solve that or address it and starts addressing it will also obviously have the market afterwards. And I think there we should put a lot of emphasis in, together with all our clients, together with all our, let's say, peers, to make that happen. Because this can't be done in isolation. As I said, you need to have the in-depth knowledge, you need to have the local knowledge, you need to have the knowledge of the real cases, and you also need to have the technology ready, and then start really put that together into that piece of source of wealth corroboration in AI area.
Cannot agree more. I can tell you, getting a SOW documentation of a client in one of the Asian countries saying how the person has built the wealth, and is this even the amount of wealth that you can build in this industry if you're in this part of the region, to even do a benchmarking, plausibility check, validate certain things, requires a lot more than just technology. So completely understand where you come from.
And especially there, it is extremely important to work with all these data which you have available, not just within your institution, also which is in public domain. As you rightfully said, you also need to benchmark it. You need to have a plausibility check. So if you only have the document, that doesn't tell you the whole story. So you need to build all the pieces together, and this is where I think GenAI gives you the opportunity now to have that assessed as a full picture.
Understood. Let's now move on to the final questions in the interest of time. So to me, the question always is, different financial institutions are differently sized. Not everyone may have hundreds of millions of dollars to just throw certain things at a problem to innovate. Maybe some institutions can, many institutions cannot, right? So how do different financial institutions travel the journey towards more automation, more AI, more GenAI, so that they can benefit from some of the things that you have explained? Wonderful. Johannes, thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Great to have you on the show. And hope you enjoyed it. Looking forward to your comments, feedback, inputs, and goodbye until we do the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.